Philip, you're still with us here in the studio. Good to have you. I just want to kick off with Anthony Blinken because there are a lot of messages to unpack, a lot of punchy sound bites that you might say, which is, often we hear from the US. One of the things that Anthony Blinken spoke about was one man chose this war, one man can end it, of course, in reference to Vladimir Putin. What did you make of his
Which
speech?
is pretty much what Joe Biden was saying yesterday when he made his address to the UN General Assembly, saying this was the work of one man, and one man, being Vladimir Putin, could end it whenever he wanted to. Anthony Blinken also drawing attention to the what he called remarkable unity against Russia within the United Nations, saying that one of Russia's hopes that would be that there would be a split, but he said even countries from north to south, from east to west, had joined forces in condemning the war in Ukraine or expressing their concern about the situation there. He said also that there was a risk that this war was going to shred the UN Charter before their eyes, the eyes of the UN members, which is why Anthony Blinken quite at length went into the finding of evidence of war crimes in Ukraine, saying the US would support that. He said, unfortunately, as Russia is losing ground, the attacks are increasing, the human rights abuses are increasing, the number of people who've been tortured are increasing. He said that the world should regret what he called the sham referendum, which are taking place tomorrow and early next week in a bid for Russia to take control of more territory in Ukraine and claim that it is Russian. He said there was a threat that Vladimir Putin was using this as an excuse to use weapons against the Ukrainians and against the international community if there was an attempt to push back Russian forces from those areas after those referendum had taken place. He said nobody chose this war, neither Ukraine, neither United States, or neither the vast majority of UN states. He said neither did the Russian mothers and fathers whose sons lost their lives so far in this conflict, and asked the question, how has the Ukrainian war improved the lives of one single Russian national since it started in February? It's time to tell Vladimir Putin to stop. Now, this was followed by Wang Yi, the Chinese foreign minister, who was quite interesting in what he said. There was no condemnation of the war in Ukraine, which is something that China has not done. But he did say that sovereignty and territorial integrity should be respected, and that all efforts to end the crisis should be followed, and gave 4 points, saying that he called for dialogue and negotiations, a de-escalation of the conflict on the ground, saying that China supported the efforts of the International Atomic Energy Agency to secure the Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant. He said the humanitarian situation should also be taken care of, and aid should be sent in that China was helping to contribute to, and that the global energy market must be kept stable, and the support of grain from Ukraine must be ensured. So I think the Chinese statement there is more indirectly critical of what Russia is doing, and already there have been remarks coming out of Russia that they are troubled by the situation in Ukraine and Vladimir Putin's war. And this is, I think, underlining that Russia is not really in agreement with what Vladimir Putin is doing, but there's no direct condemnation of the war in Ukraine.